first things first, you've been an Arsenal fan your whole life, and
Yeah.
then you got to pull on the famous Gunners shirt to play in their team in a competitive game. What's that like as a young man?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I just remember it pretty clearly in my mind. It was a typical English day. The rain was coming down pretty hard, and the boys in the locker room, they do it every week. But for me, it was a first time thing and a dream that I'd been sort of waiting for. And leading up, I didn't know if I'd get to play a game or not. And as soon as I heard, I was stoked. Putting on the jerseys, something just unreal. The long sleeves and everything, it's so authentic, and you just feel like you're there. There's a lot of pressure, and thankfully they gave me a full game. It was just a great experience. Yeah.
So you trialled for 3 London clubs. You trialled for West Ham, you trialled for Tottenham, and you trialled for Arsenal.
Yep.
How was the experience at all 3 of those clubs, and what were the different cultures like at those clubs?
Yeah, absolutely. So they were quite different. You could tell first that Arsenal had, it was big. Everything was huge. It was all new. They had a different place that the seniors trained to the juniors. And the vibe at the whole club just felt like everyone was there and they were working 110% to make the first team, which was completely different to, say, somewhere like West Ham, where people were mucking around a bit more, and it was a bit more of a relaxed culture. They still worked as hard and they played just as well. It was just a different sort of culture that they had.
So when you're going into these clubs and you go into places like Arsenal and West Ham's training ground, do you get sort of overwhelmed by the fact that you're actually there in these places to play football that you've been doing just back in Sydney?
Yeah, it's a bit ridiculous. You walk into the place and everyone sort of looks at you because they know you're new, but you also get this vibe and you find out that later on these people are used to it. They have, even as a young age of 14-year-olds, these kids have other people coming to trial for them every 2 weeks, which was huge. And while I was there, Ashley Young's younger brother was actually trialling at the same time at Arsenal when I was 16. And that sort of, I think that's when it hit me that, this is for real. Like, this is huge. Yeah.
So at the end of your trials, you were offered contracts by West Ham and Tottenham, 2 of the biggest clubs in England, a dream for most kids, but you didn't end up taking the contracts on at 16. What led you to that decision?
So there was a couple of things. Firstly, the contracts that they offered were a bit different, but between the 2 clubs. Tottenham's one was more of a shorter term contract to stay on for 6 months and give it a go and see if they did continue to like me. Whereas West Ham's was to sign with the under-18 squad, which was massive at the time. But they said to me, look, you won't be doing school anymore at the age of 16. I said, okay, that sounds pretty weird. So what's the training schedule like? And they said there's 2 training sessions each day, pretty much 7 days a week, including the games. And I think 1 off day or something like that, which was big. And I said, so what happens, if you get injured, or, what's the chance of making it? And they said, if you get injured, that's not our problem. And I think that was the time that I sort of knew it's either you commit 110% and this is what you go for, and it's going to be a long journey, or you don't do it. And it was a lot to risk. So comparing all those things, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. So do you think that culture needs to change?
No, I don't. I think you see the footballers these days that make it, and you can tell that they love it. And I think the problem with me is I had other things that were going for me and that were going well, and that I had a potential to make it in another area of my life. I think if I didn't have that, if I didn't have any other aspirations, then I would have taken it. And I think that's what you see with the players that do take it these days, is that's their only option.
Did you ever consider playing in Australia at a higher level, such as the A-League?
No, and I don't want to be pretentious or anything, but I think, with that, it's either you go the best or not. And I think that's sort of how I view my life. Whether it's with work or school or whatever, it's either you go 100% and you commit, or you don't.